must bear your neighbor's burden within reason, and your labors will be borne when all is done. At the time of my writing this, a few days ago, there were 7,731,728,147 people in the world. The number on my screen that told me this twitched up, and then twitched back, and then twitched up again, doubling itself that time. 1 step forward, and 2 steps back, and 4 steps forward again. I found myself leaning back for a moment or two, watching it tick up, trying to breathe, trying to think of it as a birth, a death, a birth. I stared at the numbers and I couldn't make them change into people. Couldn't make myself love them the way I loved the person across from me who was playing my favorite song, who was dropping something, who was telling a joke. I tried though. Oh, I tried. I tried really hard to love 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. Nina read for us some Robin Dunbar, a snippet pulled from an interview he did a few years ago. An evolutionary psychologist, he studied the social relationships amongst groups of primates and found a correlation between the size of the primate's neocortex, so that's the part of the brain that controls perception, cognition, language, and how many grooming relationships that primate can handle. So the more brain power you have, the more primates you're comfortable grooming. Go figure. Upon finding that correlation, he extrapolated based on the size of the human neocortex to find how many individuals that humans can handle. The Dunbar number. Now, the Dunbar number doesn't refer to how many people you can love ardently or loathe beyond reason or have a complicated history with based on mutual friends, but honestly not that much in common. It refers rather to, according to its progenitor, to the number of people you wouldn't feel weird about joining for a drink if you bumped into them unexpectedly at a bar. It's 150, roughly. There are some variations based on gender, personality, social exposure. Okay, you guys look tired. This isn't intro to anthro, I promise. 150 people. That number keeps coming up in human evolution, too. 20 tribal societies that are still being studied showed a mean group size of 150. The dead average number of Facebook friends and people invited to any given wedding, 150. Roman fighting units, Middle Eastern Neolithic groups, an average 9th century English village, and an average 17th century English village. It shouldn't surprise you that we have way too much data on the English. Today's Hutterites and Amish communities and modern military companies, 150. The number of rings given out when an NFL team wins. Seems low to me. But then I'm looking out on a good chunk of that number, right? Right, there's about 50, 70 of you, right? And I know a good number of you. If I added all of you to the population of my sizable annual family reunion, we would very quickly run out of coffee. And apparently, my neocortex would be like, so it feels like not enough. Maybe for some it feels like way too many, but the number is increasing as we evolve. It is not yet anywhere near 7 billion, 731,728,147. Now there are smarter people than I am who could give you a timeline with regards to humanity's route to global consciousness. But if I had to guess, I would say the first traces of it came right before World War I. We just finished up the Industrial Revolution, there was electricity, widely distributed newspapers, we'd gotten to know each other well enough to go to war. The century between then and now has seen technology and communication advance at hyperspeed. Not to mention that back then, we had just capped off our first billion, which means we added another 7 billion people in a century. Humans have been evolving for about 200,000 years, all told. So in a single 2,000th of human existence, we have added 7 billion people. And somehow, we all became aware of each other. If you consider the advent of the internet, something which is only a few years older than me, extremely, extremely aware of each other. I don't know about you, but to me, that seems like an accident, of fate, of the universe, or God, or science. We became global so quickly and so violently. It must have been a mistake. Like when you plant mint in a garden. Some of you have mint in your garden. Some of you know. Or find moths in your pantry. Or stand so far away in a crowd that you can see the whole stage and speakers and light rig, rather than whatever you're supposed to be watching. The thing about it, though, is that for all that expansion, the size of your neocortex, it just hasn't changed that much. Okay, don't get ahead of me. Because if I were you at this point, I would feel a little skeptical. I'm not letting you off the hook for caring about the 8 billion. We must continue the labor and the love of being a global citizen. We have been given the burden of that consciousness, and we must carry it. However, think about the expectations that you have for yourself as a global citizen. Think about your neocortex and its capacity. Think about the primate that you have evolved to be. Think about the amount of suffering you see on a daily basis, the amount of despair you see every time you turn on the news. Think of the fact that you constantly live in the narrative in which your choices about what you do and how you do it has an impact on whether or not the entire, actual, literal human race and the entire, actual, literal globe it lives on will survive much longer. Think about that. Think about those expectations. And then think again about your neocortex. And consider that maybe, if on more days than not you feel anxious and afraid and hopeless, it might have something to do with the first 199,900 years of your evolution. It might have something to do with the fact that what you were built to cope with and care about is dwarfed 1,000 times over by what you are actually coping with and caring about. I am not telling you to give up the fight. I am telling you to forgive yourself for being tired. It is not a particularly new or interesting idea that social media, that Twitter, is bad for us. I don't even really think it's a correct idea. You simply can't have a read on the net benefit or damage of something so massive. And there's a naive part of me that really wants to believe that humans communicating with each other will more often than not be a good thing. Social media can be used to spread awareness, to change our minds if we're open to it, to inspire. Just as often, though, you see atrocity, suffering of the worst kind, things that turn our spirit and our stomach, things that I cannot bring myself to describe to you here. Often with a comment attached to it saying that if you go about your day after seeing this, you are a monster. I've read such captions thousands of times, and I felt like a monster. But on the other hand, the captioner didn't provide any other way to keep on living, to shoulder the pain. And even if they did, clicking a link to donate what paltry amount I can afford did not unmonster me. It didn't fix what I saw, although maybe it helped a tiny bit in the long term. You can't save precious lives after they've been lost, and you can't clean up what's on your screen. If you dedicated time to feel as much deserved to be felt for all of the chaos, all of the tragedy, you wouldn't get much done. Certainly nothing world-saving. And this isn't normal. It's not. Seeing corpses every day is not normal. It can't be. Even if it feels like it, it can't be. The reduction of those real lives into an image to compel horror is an egregious, impersonal, and unfair memorial. And this guilt that we're called into, that we're condemned into, that isn't normal either. It's not healthy. It does too much to you, that member of the village, that tribal being that you are. You cannot turn a blind eye to suffering. You cannot. But you must be gentle with yourself. Because according to Dunbar, you were never supposed to bear the weight, the pain of an entire species. And here you are, bearing it. A friend of mine the other day said, I tend to get quiet when I'm sad or angry or nervous or scared. And then there was a moment of silence, a long silence, and then she said, I've been quiet a lot recently. I'm not telling you to give up the fight. I'm telling you to forgive yourself for being wounded. Cases of anxiety and depression have been on a steady increase over the years, which probably has more to do with awareness of how those mental illnesses manifest as part of human life than anything else. But I can't help but find some correlation between what we're going through and the damage we're causing. There are consequences, real mental and emotional consequences for the images that are shown to us for the suffering that we are attempting to manage. And it's not just that. It's hard to live every day like your house is on fire, as the young prophet Greta Thunberg would have us do. Just as hard, though, is the kinship that she and other bright souls in Generation Z feel, and even some of us younger millennials, around the idea that given the rise of fascism and increase in global temperature, we won't live the long lives promised to the generation before us. I've struggled with that for years. How in this climate am I supposed to get healthy? Be rational? Why would I even consider doing such a thing? There is a reason. I'm not trying to make you sad. Believe me, there's enough sadness. But I have come here today to ask you to be aware of the scope of what we're facing and to be gentle with yourself in light of it. To be aware that you inhabit a small, skull-sized kingdom made of stardust and cells and accidents. And if you are hurting, it is okay to hurt. I know it can be hard to be gentle with yourself, though. I know that in light of the burden, it can be easier to go through the years with the guilt. I also know that for some of you who think like I do, being gentle with yourself is not something that comes naturally, or something that you are interested in doing just for the sake of being kind to the evolved primate, to the hurting soul that you are. But I did mention a reason before. A reason for forgiving yourself, forgiving your neocortex, and recognizing your own fragility. A reason for pursuing sanity and health and rationality in light of incredible odds. If you can't do it for yourself, try doing it for them, for the 8 billion. Because the truth, the dastardly truth that Twitter and politics and the powers that be would rather you forget is that a people paralyzed by guilt cannot move forward at all. A people bulldozed by grief are the people they will build the new corrupted cities on. So grieve. Feel the pain of the nations the wailing the whole world round. Accept the imperfections, the days you feel that you can't make it through the week. Accept that you can only do so much. Acknowledge your privilege. Bear your neighbor's burden, but within reason. For we cannot lose you. We have too much to fight for. And only then, all together, we'll join hands and climb into the light.